every time I listen to or hear any gospel song, hymn, spiritual that has the phrase brought me over. So in this song, for every mountain you've brought me over. Me, my elders, my ancestors, we have been singing songs about overcoming for so long. And in listening to and hearing these songs, it's not about the oppression Olympics. It's not about, hey Maria, it's not about the oppression Olympics. It's not about my ancestors went through so much worse and so did God. It's not even about that. It's about the fact that my struggle, our struggle, our suffering, there are tools to aid us in enduring. That's another word, man, that we don't talk about enough. And it's a word that, I heard and hear a lot just because of my background in the church, but endurance. From where do you get the strength to endure, the courage to endure? It's August, y'all. Welcome. I'm Dana, the People's Oracle. Y'all know that though. I'm so excited all of you all are here. Pull out your guides, folks. I almost called y'all saints. Like I just told y'all to pull out the Bible, and that just feels real sacrilegious to me, so I'm gonna erase that like I ain't never said it. It's August 2021. I just have to tell you all, yesterday was August 1st, and I was like, hi, Saru.
I need the massage gun.
It's on my bed. So August 1st, yesterday, I pulled out my guide. I was like, oh, I cannot for the life of me remember the questions that I wrote for August. And when I opened up August and looked at the questions, I'm gonna get to that a little bit later, but if you've already looked at the questions in the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide for the month of August, you know why I'm making this face right here currently. Because them questions for August, whoo, I almost want to know like what was going through my mind when I was writing for August that was the first question I chose. Jesus. All right. Anyway, so in the calendar, you know that I write or have offered a theme for each month. And we're coming out of July decolonizing the language of liberation. And it was so interesting to watch that at the close of the month, a very well-known rapper got in trouble for some words that he used and for the sentiment behind his words and the intention behind his words. And a lot of people came out with some more words, in response to that language. Yeah. I think the other piece that was very prevalent and very loud for me in July was the ways in which words were so much a cover. This was the first time that we had planets transiting through Gemini with nothing in Sagittarius since 2016. 2016 was the last year that we came to June and July of a year where planets are generally transiting Gemini, and there's nothing in Sagittarius, no Saturn, no Jupiter, no eclipses. And so I know personally, I saw and felt and experienced Gemini transits in a way that it had been a while since I felt them that way. And having gone through all of those Sagittarius transits, between 2017 and 2020 really gave me a new perspective in understanding that, and this is from my Gemini loved ones who have taught me that Gemini as people, as placements, as like energies and archetypes and forms that exist out in the world as well, they talk through things. And it's very difficult to know whether or not they said what they meant or that they're just processing through things. And I think if we observe, for example, the CDC, they come out speaking authoritatively when in fact they were processing out loud. Well, we kind of think that this is the case, and it's just like, for people who want to make sure they're very sure about things before they open their mouths, they really did a poor job. So we come to August and we are constructing identities. We are constructing identities in August, and there are two phrases I've been speaking and hollering from the top of my lungs. Identity is a belief system. Identity is a belief system. And more it has become abundantly translucent that belief system is being weaponized against you, silently behind all of the language, phrases, information we're receiving. As if you were a real American, you would. If you were real, if you're really white, if you really profess yourself to be a Christian, if you believe, if you have this conviction, then you would. If you're really Black, you would. If you're really queer, you would. And it's the ways that these if-thens, if you really are, these challenges to your identity. Are you really who you say you are? Let me check inside your pants. Let me take some blood. Let me measure your urine. If you are who you say you are. If you are who you say you are, then you can. If you aren't who you say you are, you can't. Who gets to doggone determine who you are? Who holds that power? Who holds the power to say who and what you are? This is the question. This is the question, because every single life and death choice that we must make at this moment, we encounter it through and inside of this constant chamber of echoes asking, who are you? Who are you? You are who I say you are. And because I say you are this, you cannot use this bathroom. You cannot play this sport. You cannot use this swim cap. You cannot speak this way. You cannot use this language. You cannot. You must. Oh, you're a woman. You must. You cannot. Who's a woman? I'd say. Who's a woman? And here we go. Moving the goalposts, constructing identities. And I kept it neutral like that because, again, I'm just gonna, let me just stop with the with the soliloquy up top and get down to the meat of this, get down to the nitty gritty of August. Because let me tell you, when I went back and read what I had written for the monthly summary, what I had written for the questions, I haven't even looked at the fill in the blanks yet. I'm nervous. Woo! You know, it is very clear that we are in a war for our identities. We are at war. And what is at stake? What do you win in this war? In this war, you win the right to save your own life. You win the right to say who and what you are. You strip from the hands of your enemy the power to determine what you see when you look in the mirror. The power to form your own judgments and conclusions about the information that you encounter, about your experience. So let me read, because y'all know I can go on all day. I am reading from the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide. This is volume 4. So we've been doing this since what? 2018. And I'm reading the monthly summary for August. And it says, our perceptions and definitions of self are filtered through the lens of other people's real or perceived power out in the world and over us. Let me stop, because that's a really long sentence with a lot of words. And I need y'all to stop requesting to be in my video. I hope it's an accident. Please stop. It's a lot of words here, and I want to just break this down, and I'm gonna read the rest without stopping. So our perceptions, that means, what do you see? What does your mind perceive? And definitions of self. Who are you? So what our mind sees, what our eyes see, and how we identify ourselves is perceived through the lens of other people's power out in the world. Your capacity to see yourself as you really are requires you to negotiate your safety, right? Your survival, your well-being. Even still, we often assume that we are seeing ourselves through our own eyes. Whose vision determines what you see? Whose gaze, how you perceive yourself in the world, do you internalize in order to survive? I did a live a couple weeks ago where I talked about how each and every one of us has had to internalize, to take on the form of, to conform to our oppressors and our abusers in order to survive. There is no way that you are alive on this earth at this time and you have not internalized some hatred of yourself, your mother, your neighbor, your cousin, your loved one, the stranger, the enemy, whoever. There's no way. There is no way. The cognitive dissonance you would have to preserve would lead you to schizophrenia. Literally. If you were able to hold on to some kind of pristine self that's left untouched by the hand of your oppressor, by the words of your abuser, there's no way. You would not survive if you hadn't just a little bit memorized the script that was often repeated to you about who and what you are. Because you had to survive. This month, we arrived at the midpoint between eclipses, bringing all 4 fixed signs into varying degrees of focus over the course of the month. Right now, we got Venus and Mars and Leo. We've got the moon in Taurus. We got Jupiter in Aquarius. And all month long, we're going to see varying configurations of fixed signs happening. The fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, teach us how identity is a survival mechanism. When you look around and you see people implicitly or explicitly identifying as white, what they are saying is that if I conform myself to the expectations, norms, physical appearances, beliefs, and convictions of that defined as whiteness, I know that I have a better chance at surviving. You can put white person, black person, queer person, straight person, Indian, Asian, First Nation, any identity. We know that the more that we internalize the norms and expectations of whiteness, of patriarchy, of capitalism, we know that we have a lower likelihood of being harmed externally from other people, but in exchange for that, we harm ourselves. 2020 focused on the Taurus, the social constructs that we conform to, often at the expense of a more fluid and subjective expression of self. 2021 widens our lens, revisiting lessons of 2017. Now, we must address the dynamics of power and authority. Power is strength and opportunity. Authority is position and title. The last Mercury retrograde of the year informally begins with the first of 3 conjunctions between Mercury and Mars. The first conjunction in Leo speaks to the ways power concedes to authority. So that means your power, my power, states' powers, schools' powers, hospitals' powers, municipalities, right? Everywhere that there is a hierarchy of power, there are levels of authority, right? The first conjunction in Leo speaks to the ways that power concedes to authority so that power might conserve itself. Whose authority have you conceded your power to so that you can survive? What lengths have those who've used their authority to overpower you, what lengths have they gone to coerce you, to manipulate you, to incentivize you into giving up your power? We face this dynamic through confrontations with patriarchy, maleness's assumption of authority due to their alleged superior strength, and whiteness's obsession with dominance over others. And I put in parentheses there, whiteness's assumption of authority due to their alleged superior identity. I am going to allege the hell out of everything, because one thing I don't do is take any assumption or statement at face value. So let's go to these. I haven't looked at these fill in the blanks since I wrote them last year, so I don't know what they're gonna say. Whew. All right, I'm here. I'm here at the back of the guide where the fill in the blanks are. We're at August, and first up on the 8th, we have Mercury in Leo. Now remember, when you have this guide, you should have, before you touch anything in this guide, you follow the instructions given here, and you can put your birth chart actually in here. That's what this page is for. You can write down your placements here, and then your house numbers. This is the most important thing, and you have to use whole sign houses, okay? Lahiri Ayanamsha, the instructions on the website. But excuse me, once you fill that out, you're going to be using the information in this table to do everything in this guide, including the fill in the blanks in the back. So, for example, we've got Mercury in Leo on August 8th, and that says speaking to preserve authority. So where's your Leo house, right? And it might not be you that's speaking. It might be someone else. You might be listening, hearing, learning. Or you might have the microphone, Leo rising, Leo moon, right? You might have the microphone where you are speaking to preserve authority, okay? And so you go back to this table where it says houses in my birth chart. And so I've got Leo in the 9th house here. So that means I'm going to go to this houses table and fill out the significations for Leo in this box, for the 9th house, excuse me, in this box. Let's keep going. Also on the 8th, is that right? I can't even look at nothing because all of my devices are being used. I have here also on the 8th, yes, that's right. New moon in Cancer, planting a new hierarchy of my needs. This is really a big deal, and this is really, really important because one of the things that we've been witnessing up until today's the last day that this phenomenon is happening, where we've got planets in Cancer opposing Saturn in Capricorn. And Capricorn says, this is the limit. This is what is available. This is what you have. This is what you have access to. Anything beyond this is not available to you. And so all of these oppositions have forced us to bump up against the limits of what's available materially, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, spiritually, psychically, right? All of these resources, we're bumping up against the limit of what is available. And so the ways that the new moons are happening this year are that we have a full moon in one sign and then the new moon in the opposing sign afterwards. So we've already had a full moon in Capricorn, and now we're having a new moon in Aquarius. And so in light of the in light of the Mars-Saturn opposition that was building all of June, in light of the Venus-Saturn opposition, now we're at the Sun and Mercury opposition. We're going into this new moon in Cancer, and I'll be doing a reading for that probably on Sunday. But in light of all of these experiences we've basically had just really since the beginning of June. We could go all the way back to January 2020, to be honest. But in light of that, what's available to you? And this new moon is the moment where we say, okay, I need to reassess my hierarchy of needs based on my encounters with material reality over the past couple of months, or since January 2021, or since January 2020, okay? Venus in Virgo on the 11th. Venus is booking, y'all. You see, Sun ain't even in Leo yet, and Venus is already hopping into Virgo because Venus is going to be retrograde later this year. Yes, we're already at another Venus retrograde. Venus in Virgo, analyzing relationships. Virgo is the real indecisive one. It's not Libra. Why is Virgo indecisive? Virgo is indecisive because they want to use external quantifiable evidence, in order to make decisions. Venus in Virgo even treats their own desire as like a list of pros and cons. Venus in Virgo is kind of disconnected from the instinct. It's disconnected from the body in a way that it would allow itself to just be moved into attraction or be able to hear. The word is interoception, I believe is the word, which is the capacity to feel the inside of your own body. So like people who have really high levels of interoception can feel their blood pulsing, or they can hear their blood moving through, or they can feel and often identify all of these sensations. And so Venus in Virgo might really have a challenge. I see that someone has posted a question, and today, for the sake of keeping this video brief, I am going to end this video later on, and I will start a new video to answer questions, okay? The 16th Sun in Leo, focusing on dynamics of power and authority. So one of the cool things about the guide is if you go back to these beginning tables, there's a table in here that says planets in transit, okay? And the planets in transit table basically gives you a brief understanding of what it means for a planet to change signs. So you notice that the sun is always focused. So when we come to even the sun in Leo, there's that key word again, August 16th, sun in Leo, focusing, right? So the word focus for where the sun is in your birth chart, for where the sun is transiting at any given time, or in any other chart you might be examining. Focus is about your conscious attention, okay? Full moon in Aquarius on the 22nd, seeing myself clearly through my own eyes. Who can't wait for it? Because that full moon is conjunct Jupiter. Okay. All right. Lastly, August 26th, Mercury in Virgo. I told you Mercury's booking too because it is going to station retrograde in September. Okay. Analyzing, calculating, and measuring. Now, let us go back. Let us go back to August and let's read these questions. I don't have no disclaimer. Y'all know me. I am direct and straightforward. I do not beat around the bush. I give it to you straight. I might give you a little chaser just to soothe the burning in your esophagus as it goes down. But generally, I'm going to give it to you the way that it is. All right, and with these questions, I gave it to you the way that it is. And if you can't yet see the relevance, you ain't been paying attention, my friend. Okay, first question for August. These are questions you're supposed to be answering in your guide, okay? First question says, what does survival mean to you? Now, I opened up my guide yesterday and looked at this question, skimmed the other ones, but came back to this first question and just set my guide aside. And I have really, for the past 24 hours, consciously been thinking about this. It's this question of survival has really been at the forefront of how I've had to move over the past couple of months specifically, but really over the past couple of weeks, I've really been having to be intentional and direct with myself in one, answering this question about what survival means, but also in light of what survival means. And you can add this question to your guide, right? I talked about this new moon in Cancer coming up, and the fill in the blank in the back I just read was planting a new hierarchy of needs. And so, you know, what's really apparent is that our very definition of survival, what we have to do in order to survive, what means are available to us in order to survive, these are things that have transformed for many of us almost irrevocably since January 2020, and in ways that are completely foreign to us, right? And so with that being said, this is a question that you can add to your guide, because I'm going to add it to mine. How is your evolving definition of survival informing the hierarchy of needs that you're planting at this new moon? Okay. I feel like I could have just wrote this one question, what does survival mean to you? I feel like I could have wrote that one question and just left it there, right? I think too, let me just add to this, because I think that inside this question of what does survival mean to you is also these questions of, if you're having issues answering this, I think this will be very helpful. If you saw this question and you drew a blank, or it was just too much, I think that what I'm about to say will help you answer this question. For me, I have like 4 different tiers, 3 or 4, not tiers, but like little circles, if I draw them on a piece of paper. We've got my own physical well-being, right? And then I've got my mental, emotional well-being, right? And tied into both of those things is my material well-being. But then I have a child. And so now, not only do I have to concern myself with my own physical, mental, emotional, material well-being, I am solely responsible for the mental, emotional, physical, material well-being of a whole other human who really doesn't have much agency in terms of caring for himself at this juncture in his life. Right? Right? So now, not only, it's not as simple as like, all right, as long as I physically survive, that's good. So that means eating well, getting enough rest, drinking water, doing some yoga, getting some sunshine, walking, moving, mental, emotional, maintaining connections with my loved ones, going to therapy, singing as much as possible, playing piano and listening to music as much as possible. All of those things are my physical, mental, emotional. Of course, material I have to make. Sorry, it just paused. I have to, as far as I have to make getting income a priority. But now I have the physical, mental, emotional well-being of a whole other human, right? Now, for some people, these may not be as relevant for you. Maybe for you, you are inside of a body that other people in this society has claimed dominion over, in that you have very little power in terms of determining how other people identify you. And that your capacity to navigate the world's obsession with telling you who you are, this is another added layer. And this other added layer is impacting your physical safety and your mental and emotional well-being and your material well-being, right? Or you might be inside a body that is not able. Chronic illness, you may have long COVID, you might be a long hauler, right? And so your hierarchy is different. I kind of want to push, okay, what I'm doing right now might be controversial and y'all might not like it, but I want to push back on the people in the comments saying that no, I'm not going to push back because that's y'all's truth and that's your experience and ain't none of my business. So I'm gonna mind mine. Anyways, next question here. Whew, this is a doggone good one. Jesus. How did 2020 impact your relationship with survival? Okay, let me go back. So I was going to push back against the people who said that their emotional well-being is number one. And personally, for me and my feelings, that made me flinch. And it was uncomfortable for me to read or to hear other people say that their emotional well-being is number one, because I don't have that privilege. And there are too many of us who don't have the privilege to put our emotional well-being first, because I'm just going to come out and say it. between white terrorism, white evangelicalism, and capitalism, our capacity to put our emotional well-being first has been stripped from us. Because white people keep putting their damn feelings first. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to direct this at an individual person, but I could not go past this moment without sharing how triggered that made me. Yes, I am prioritizing my mental and emotional health. Yes. But at the same time, my ability to do that is completely overshadowed by the choices that a whole bunch of other people are making. You understand what I'm saying? I literally just had this conversation in the car with my son this morning. My son, he approaches everything feel good, not feel good. And that's cool. He's 9. Is this comfortable or uncomfortable for me? Does it scare me or do I feel safe? He's 9. He's supposed to prioritize his own joy and well-being. But I had to explain to him that my obligation as a parent means that I have had to learn how to create hierarchies of priorities. I have to negotiate with my discomfort all of the time. For reasons, some of them are just being a sentient being. A lot of other than though is because a whole group of people have stripped from me my capacity to prioritize my own joy. Because I can't take my son out of this house without encountering maskless people who are in immediate danger to me and my child. And I'm not going to say it's white people just peddling this bullshit. But at the same time, it's white people peddling this bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? And so I push back, not to guilt trip you or to shame you, but for you to take that opportunity to recognize that it's from a place of privilege, that you can set aside your own physical well-being and say, yeah, I need to feel at peace. And I need to feel at harm. And maybe that's just lack of language. Maybe you implied. Right. So yes. So again, it's okay. But, I found myself more than once today tiptoeing around white people's feelings. And that's really against my religion. And so I really had to say that. And I don't want to target you with shame, and I don't want to heap guilt on you, because neither one of those are really useful. This is really about you being, and I mean all white people, because it wasn't just the person on this live, it's been in my mentions all damn day. That you gotta learn to receive things from non-white, non-straight people, because at the same time, right, it's a lot of queer, trans, and non-binary people who, again, they don't have the privilege to prioritize their emotional well-being. And if that's your reality, like, cool. But in this liberation work, feeling good is a privilege. And I don't suffer as a martyr. I don't suffer as some statement or some principle. It's reality, and I can see very clearly the source of my suffering. I can see it. It's crystal clear to me that the things that I perceive as a threat and danger to me are not the same as a whole bunch of other people. So if you have the privilege of focusing on feeling good, that means you've got an abundance of something that you need to share. Because survival is meant to be a shared burden, not an individual obligation or some other thing that is owned by a single person. If you have the privilege of prioritizing good feelings, know that you got way too much of something and you need to share it. All right, let's go on. And I can't help but to feel bad because that's my conditioning. But at the same time, I don't feel bad because it's been in my mentions on Twitter all day. White people just oh man, that's just really terrible. If only we could, everything would be. And it's just you have no idea. You have no idea. You have none. And I've had to calm myself because I don't want to project too much on people. But at the same time, I know it's this spirit of nonchalance and this false equivalences and these oversimplified if-then statements that shows me how blind privileged folks are to the reality of our circumstances. This is not an if-then. You have to give up whiteness. That's how we get out of this. Period, blank, end of sentence. Period. That's it. The only thing left to do at this moment is for you to take that whiteness off of your little name tag, throw that shit in the burning pit of hell, and find a new goddamn identity. You have to. That shit is killing you. It's not just killing us. It's killing you. So attached to this made up, manipulative cult of whiteness that you are willing to lay your body, your child, at the foot of death to preserve it. Capitalism. I mean, there's one way out of this. There is a single exit door, and you can push on the walls in every other direction of vaccines and masks, and yes, all of that stuff. But there is a singular door out of here. There's only one. There's no other door. Because when you walk out of that door and you leave behind whiteness, you know what you're also leaving with it? You're leaving patriarchy. You're leaving misogyny and misogynoir. You're leaving transphobia and homophobia. You're leaving childism. You are leaving behind all of the collective behaviors and ways we organize power that have us in the midst of a dangerous climate crisis. So one door, that's it. And if you're not willing to do that, just say you're homicidal and call it a day. Just say it. Just say it. Just say you have no interest in living any longer. You have no interest in anyone else living any longer. Period. That's all we got. Because I cannot make you believe that this life is worth living if you are willing to sacrifice your own children. The depravity, the evil. I can't negotiate with that. I started this off talking about we're constructing identities. So here's the next question. What present aspects of your identity can you see is being shaped by the need to survive and get your needs met during your childhood and upbringing. So we got to take it all the way back. So many times we've heard in a lot of different ways that what we say, this is who I am and this is my identity, is actually your survival coping mechanisms. There is a quote from Alak. Oh man, that video. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see if I can pull up the quote here. Let me see, because I can't remember the exact words, but the quote says, the threat, right? So this is from Alak, and he was, or excuse me, they were talking about how people, specifically cisgendered men, perceive queer folk as a threat. And so they go on to say the threat is a system that made you mistake your latent dissociation for a personality. And that was such an eloquent and poetic way to say that your identity is a belief system and it's being weaponized against you. Meaning the self that you think of as my true self is not one that you've chosen. It's one that you had to take on and to survive. So this idea that you are independent, ain't nobody independent. You were made independent by abandonment and neglect. You understand what I'm saying? You aren't charming. Yes, you may be beautiful, but to what standard? Who decided what beautiful was? And why have you prioritized your physical appearance and your capacity to disarm other people with the tone of your voice and your eyes and your hair? Because if you didn't, you would have been neglected, rejected, abandoned, shamed, physically harmed, right? So don't get too attached to anything that you call you, right? Because if you peel it back far enough, you're going to find that beneath all of that is a child who learned to hide very, very, very well. That was your cultural inheritance, your generational inheritance, to learn how well you could hide who you truly are in order to survive. So what identities are you hiding inside of? How are you becoming aware and conscious of these things and taking them in your hands, reclaiming them and renaming them as tools of liberation rather than foregone conclusions and some faded sense of self and identity that comprises the real you? The real you is the you who could exist without threat of annihilation from whiteness, patriarchy, capitalism, transphobia, queerphobia, childism. That's the real you. How much self-hatred have you internalized? How many times have you taken the wound of invisibility that's been turned on you, take that eraser and just turn it back onto yourself so you can deviate a little bit less from whiteness, and you can deviate a little bit less from cisgenderedness and heterosexuality. You could deviate a little bit less from looking and acting like a woman. How are you presently confronting the role that these identities play in your life and relationships at present? Finally, can you make any connection between what's happening right now in your Leo houses and Aquarius houses and what was happening there August and September of 2017? So what you're going to find with these houses is that they're a pair that should be directly opposite each other. There's only, 6 choices of houses that have Leo and Aquarius in them. 1 or 7, 2 and 8, 3 and 9, 4 and 10, 5 and 11, and 6 and 12. Those are your only options, right? So you find that set of paired houses that have Leo and Aquarius on them, okay? All right? And if you cannot make connections between the house topics that you've identified, you can just think of 2017. Think of August and September 2017. What was going on for you? I know for me, This is my third and my ninth house. So, right, third house is family, all that's familiar, near relatives, aunts and uncles, siblings, kins, but also social media. Ninth house is religious and religious institutions, colleges and universities, media publishing, government, libraries, all of those things, right? So what happened for me in August and September of 2017 is the church I grew up at. And when I say grew up at, I mean this is one of the first Black mega churches in the country that was actually started by my great-grandfather. So my aunt is assistant pastor. My grandfather was deacon for 50 years. My uncle's been directing the choir for 50 years. I mean, this is my family's church. And the pastor at the time had a very public homophobic laden falling out with a longtime member, a woman whose children were my age. I grew up singing in the choir with her and her kids and being involved in all ministries. And at the time, I was still serving at the church in the capacity of music. And this very public kind of excommunication, shaming and judgment and falling out with this woman because she posted images of her wedding to another woman on her social media. And the church just went, gossipy. And they ended up telling her that she could not be married to her wife and have that family and still be at the church. I mean, she was my aunt's armor bearer. And that for me was just like, oh, hell no. You will not catch me participating, co-signing in any way with this. And I stopped teaching. That was my last gig as a music teacher. That was the last job I had. So those third, ninth house axes were really, 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 really loud. So for me, in Leo and Aquarius fashion, it was really about my identity and who I am. And even though my family created this legacy, it had deviated so far from who I am and how I identify myself that there was no way that I could continue to participate in this. And it was very difficult for me because I felt I was abandoning my mentor who had really taken me under her wing and taught me so much my whole life. I was abandoning my peers. I felt like I was abandoning my family. But at the same time, ain't no way I could ever participate in a community that weaponizes people's sexuality against them. How could you preach Jesus? How could you preach Jesus and abandon folks that way? How? The wild part of all of this, the wildest part of all of this is that the pastor at the time and now, his son is gay and has been in various leadership positions. But see, because he wasn't out, but everybody knew. So this is about identity. I be feeling bad for going so hard because I know people have a hard time not personalizing things that I say. But one thing that I understand so clearly now, this is not intellectual debate. This is not debate. My life is not up for debate. My survival and my safety and my well-being is not up for debate. There is no negotiation, none whatsoever, none. The deepest, most critical, I would even say the totality of liberation. I mean, its primary, secondary, tertiary goals are always to rightly discern the source of our suffering. And those who can rightly identify, translate, articulate, and communicate to those oppressed what the true source of their suffering is. That's Moses, right? That's Harriet Tubman. That's Malcolm X. Identifying for us the true source of our suffering. You've got to be able to peel through the abuse you've encountered. You've got to be able to peel back the layers of the identity you've taken for granted. And you've got to get down to the meat and peel that back, and get down to the bone and peel that back, and get down to the marrow so that you can find the true source of your suffering. When your suffering and the harm that you've encountered remains individualized to a singular person, peel back some more. As I've said always, every single trauma and abuse is patriarchy, misogyny, misogynoir, transphobia, homophobia, childism, capitalism. You got 7 choices. 7, that's it. That's it. But we could put whiteness and capitalism up there at the top, because at the end of the day, whiteness, capitalism, patriarchy, that's the 3-headed beast that we are now face to face with. Winter said something earlier today. This was in our group chat, but I tweeted it earlier and it's just really stuck with me. Winter said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that for a people who claim to be so into Jesus and so into the Bible, it's like, all right, you like the Bible so much, let's go read about the plagues. You like plagues? This is a plague. This is a plague that we're in. What did God instruct his chosen people to do when there was a plague? You're supposed to sacrifice a lamb, take the blood, put it over your door, and your firstborn would be protected. But instead of protecting your firstborn, white folks, anti-vaxxers, it's black folk anti-vaxxers, though I have a little bit more compassion for them. And I'm just being honest. I do. It's just the way that it is. Sorry, not sorry. Because our relationship with the state is a little bit different. And we have to overcome a whole lot more hurdles in order to trust public health than other folks do. This does not absolve them of their responsibility to protect their loved ones and themselves and each other, right? But at the same time, where's the blood of the lamb on your doorpost? Or are you sacrificing your firstborn to Herod, or the Pharaoh, right? This was the firstborn theme was twice, right? This was in the plague, and this was also when Jesus was born, right? You can't be anti-vax and anti-mask. I'll give you anti-vax. Put a mask on. You can wear it for the rest of your life, everywhere you go. Your prerogative, but that's not what you're doing. Over and over again in the Bible, they talk about differentiating between authority on earth and divine authority. Over and over again, there's this conversation about self-determination, maintaining a self-determined identity, rejecting the identity that's assigned to you, enslaved, right? Talking about the children of Israel, rejecting the identity of being enslaved and understanding that their destiny was not to be in bondage. The will of God for them was not to be enslaved and in bondage. And it took generation upon generation to decolonize their mind. Over and over again, they went back to their oppressors' ways, begged to be taken back into bondage, when they were out in the wilderness, figuring out what they were going to eat and drink. As God was dropping food from the sky. Oh, just take us back. At least then we knew when we were going to eat and we were going to drink. That's how y'all treat these jobs. Oh, just put me back in the office. At least I know what time to wake up and what time to go to sleep and what time to pick up my kids and what time to drop them off and what time to eat and when to take a vacation, when to rest, when to sleep, what to drink, when to drink. I have coffee then, and then I go home and I have wine because I'm looking for the troll. Okay. Anyways, let me go. This was great. Whew. Lord have mercy. We gonna get free come hell or high water, and either you on this boat getting up out of here with us or we leaving you behind. You want to stay treading water? I got better dreams for myself. My imagination is so much more big and so much more vast than me just treading water and staying afloat in the midst of this murky swamp. I ain't living like this. That's your definition of survival and well-being. You just want to go back to the comfort and to the familiar. For my ancestors, the familiar was the plantation. So I already have a legacy of jumping out into the unknown and leaving behind bondage, even though I was sure when I was going to eat and I was going to drink. Can you let that go and trust the knowledge of your body to find food and nourishment? Can you build the bonds of connection and sharing the burden of survival? That's all I got. I am going to end this video, and if you have questions, I am going to restart this video in another live, and I will be taking your questions. So whoever put a question in the question box here, you can save your question. And there's 2 mantras I want to leave you with today. And I want you to protect your mind with this, because this is what I've been doing. I've had to protect my sanity with these 2 phrases. Decolonize your survival instinct. If at any time you find yourself speaking in defense of the old ways before January 2020, you got more work to do. If at any time you find yourself defending the police, you got a ways to go. If at any time you find your lips being fixed to say the word, what about the economy? You've got some more decolonizing to do. And finally, survival, the hard, nitty gritty, burdensome work of survival was, is, and is always meant to be a shared burden, not an individual obligation. Protect your mind with that. Protect your mind with it. Shield your sanity from those who are irredeemably sucked into the cult of individualism. All right? You all take care. I'll see y'all on another live to answer questions. Bye.